Thank you all for coming tonight. I'd like to call our council meeting to order. And see, we have for tonight's invocation, Oscar Villarreal, please.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for all the blessings you give to all of us. Be with our friends, family, and the less fortunate. Be with the people of California. And thank you for the wonderful Thanksgiving we're about to have. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. If anyone would rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We'll take roll and make it noted that all council members are present. And special presentations, we don't have any officially, but I'm glad our friends from CPS are here this evening. If the fire department, Johnny, would you like to give us your report, please?
Absolutely. For the month of October, we had 48 fire alarms, 16 EMS calls, 2 arcing electrical lines, 1 assist the public call, 1 trash fire, for an average response time of 2 minutes and 21 seconds. Our EMS provider had 16 EMS calls, and their average response time was 8 minutes and 42 seconds. Also, the month of October was Fire Prevention Week. That was October 7th through 13th, and we conducted classes for Park Hills Baptist Church, Country Home Learning Center, and also here at the firehouse for over 350 children.
Goodness. Wow.
Any questions?
Man. Any questions from the council?
Happy Thanksgiving.
All right. Thank you, Johnny. All right. From the police department, Sam, would you like to?
Yeah, Chief Pritchard's he's out this evening with the family obligations, holidays, and whatnot. I know you have our stats in front of you. You can see what those are. We had 299 calls for service in October. That's up slightly from last year at this time. We conducted in conjunction with the DEA, the drug take-back program in October, which we have twice a year, once in the spring, once in the fall. And this take-back, this collection was 335 pounds of drugs of one sort or the other, some controlled substances. Chief Pritchard and a Postal Service inspector gave a mail theft briefing to residents at their annual Hollywood Park Community Association meeting. The postal inspector gave out lots of great information and handouts that would help the residents protect themselves from mail theft and ID theft. I know Chief Pritchard has a program on ID theft that he gives. He's given numerous times to various organizations. We wanted to thank PetSmart, who donated a large number of stuffed animals to the department. We've got more stuffed animals than we know what to do with. I think we got a storeroom full of them now.
Saw that.
And as you don't know, police departments traditionally will keep a couple of stuffed animals in the trunks of patrol cars, in the back of patrol cars, because we invariably come across children with their families that are in distress, and we try to use those to calm the situation. DPS will be conducting, Department of Public Safety will be conducting our annual criminal justice systems audit. That's our computer systems, our criminal histories, our driver's license. When we run all these things, there's security requirements about who we can give them to, who we can't give them to, who can even walk into our squadron back there. DPS governs that. So they're going to be doing our audit. And we've done quite well on our previous audits, and we expect to do well. We know what to expect, and we're ready for them. And it's just normal business. They do these audits annually. So, and we also wanted to thank the Hollywood Park Community Association for putting on the chili cook-off, which we participate in. Sergeant Anderson knows they're cheating. He's wanted me to point that out. He should win, according to him.
Yeah.
But, no, we really appreciate it. It's a wonderful, wonderful event. That's all I've got.
Well, thank you. I know there was a nice write-up in the newest issue of the Local about the bike patrol here in Hollywood Park, and a nice write-up about how it helps spread our presence in areas like our parks and parking lots, and that was neat. And I'd like to point out that all the drugs that were confiscated were not from residents of Hollywood Park. We are a multi-mile area, correct?
Yes, I can
Yeah.
put that. We are a
Just wanna-
collection point for this part of San Antonio and Bexar County. So I wouldn't. I've participated each and every time DEA has had this here, and people come from all the neighborhoods surrounding Hollywood Park and our residents too. But no, the majority probably do come from outside Hollywood Park. My guess.
All right. Thank you, Sam. I appreciate
And they're not generally, we're not talking heroin, cocaine. We're just talking cabinet drugs that you have no use for anymore, or somebody's passed away and you don't know what to do with them. You can come here and you can leave them with us, and DEA takes care of it.
Any questions from the council?
I have one question. The toys that were donated by PetSmart, I'm only asking this because I'm in the toy business. Are those pet toys by chance? Stuffed animals that they give you?
No, sir, they're
Are
not.
all are toys pet toys to some degree?
For instance, there's
At my
glass
house.
eyes that you would put on a pet toy.
Yes.
The plastic eyes, we call them glass eyes. So I was just curious.
Okay.
Yeah, those are actually toys, because we work at Bismarck, those are actually toys that people can buy and donate.
Got it.
So it's a kid toy.
Got it.
They actually want to donate them back to shelters and things like that, but they're not designed for pets.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that's what they donate to.
She knows more about that than I do. I looked at
Defer to
them.
the expert.
Some people may think they're pet toys.
Right, absolutely. So
Mm,
you're
my-
right. So,
Thank you, Tanya Cummings, our resident pet expert, pet toy expert also. All right. All right, for the Public Works Department, Kelly Cowan.
All right, so for our code compliance, y'all can see the log. We had 50 notices given out. Majority of those were political sign notices. I bet those signs kept popping up like crazy. So Gavin's staying on top of that. Couple of cases we're working on, but for the most part, 46 of them are, as soon as the notices are given, they're taken care of. And everybody's pretty understanding about, hey, we can't do that, let's just be compliant. For the Voight Center, things are starting to pick up a little bit. We had 17 events this month. 11 of them were community events, 3 resident, 3 non-resident. The month of November is even busier, and December is going to be in the 20s someplace. I had a wedding last week, I got a wedding this weekend, and I got a wedding next weekend, all at the Voight Center. So it's doing very, very well. I don't know if anybody's, if y'all noticed, we did do some street repair this month. I had a crack fill machine out for 5 days. My guys, we did all of the gardens, Tiger Tail, William Clausen, and one of the other streets. Worked out really, really, really well. I think this is going to be a big plus for the city. Doing some research and checking, crack fills will increase the life of our streets about 10 years if I can stay on top of them. So I'm sure people have been down the park. You've seen the big hole in front of the pool house. We did have a water leak, had to saw cut the concrete, do a water patch there. I'm in the process of getting a contractor out to put new concrete down that matches. And that's pretty much all I've got.
I was down there today. I'm assuming all the frozen vegetation is going to be removed.
We're working on, we've removed everything in front of the Voight Center, started around the Butterfly Garden, and as we have time, we continue to work our way around there. It'll all be gone.
Good.
What about all that lantana that's overgrown over there?
It'll all be gone. I'm going to take it over and donate it to some people.
Kelly, I do have a question on the maple tree behind the I believe it's a maple tree behind the Voight Center there.
It's not a maple tree, that's a sycamore.
It's looking sick.
It looks okay. It actually blew down, believe it or not. It blew completely over. And we reset it back up with all the rain we had, and then the high winds, it just blew it over. That's why it's staked right now. If you go back there and you look, there's ropes all over the place back there. It's not because I'm putting clotheslines up, it's because I don't want the tree to fall over again.
You get all the questions tonight. How long did it take your guys to do those streets that y'all did? I know you said they got
We
more
had the
efficient as they
machine
went
for
along.
5 days. Out of the 5 days, I lost some because of weather. You can't put the crack sealer down when there's any kind of moisture. So I figured we got about 24 to 25 man hours, and we did the entire gardens and then the other 3 streets, which, from my calculations, is about I've at least doubled the budget per square footage, but by us doing it ourselves, maybe a little more.
I think about 3.5 miles of street.
Is that how much it was?
Area. That's my estimate, and it used up about a third of your total street repair budget for the year, if that's about right. So we'd be able to go back a couple more times. And I want to thank the EDC for coming through and funding the repairs for the concrete of the hole in front of the pump house. And that'll prove helpful.
Yes, it will.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thanks, Kelly.
All right. Janice,
Oh,
would you like to share anything with us?
we had our annual shred day last Saturday, and it was really successful. We had like double the amount of cars this year for some reason than we did last year. But of course, we were serving free donuts and coffee. I don't know, that may have helped. We also were very lucky. We had our mugs, our T-shirts, and caps. And frankly, I didn't think people were going to stop to buy a T-shirt, but we got $140 worth of revenue from T-shirts and caps. So thank you, residents, for coming out. It was a very successful event. So we did very, very well. Courts is busy as usual. We have 3 bench trials for next month for December, and we have a jury trial coming up in January. And that's about it.
Thank you. I apologize to Jeff Henson for skipping you. It was just a little build up, mixing it up, men and women and stuff. Proud to have Jeff Henson here, our Director of Finance, and please share your wisdom with us.
Well, in the first month of the year, there's not that much to talk about, but there's 3 items that I wanted to point out to you. First of all, even though property taxes is 0, I have over $160,000 this month, and checks still sitting to be put in. So November is going to be a pretty big month for that tax. The next one is the sale tax. That's what really caught my eye. Sales tax is $66,056. Out of that, $6,000 is due to sale tax audits from previous businesses that they audited. That leaves $60,000. Compared to last year's sales tax at the same time, it was $45,000. That's a 33% increase in actual currently paid sales tax for the month. Also, the last thing I want to do is point it out to me that in case there's any questions, if you look at the budget, all personnel services will be over this month because it's a 3-paycheck month. Since we're on a 2-week period, we get 26 paychecks. 2 months of the year have 3 paychecks in them. It just so happened that October was that month of the year. Is there any questions or anything?
Not for me.
As you were.
Excuse me?
As you were.
All right. Mr. Brennan, you have anything to share with us tonight?
Not right now, Mayor. I
Okay.
might in a little bit.
All right. All right. Well, thank you. Well, I understand we're not to eat romaine lettuce. As I understand, there's been a recall for E. coli. It's one more reason not to eat romaine lettuce.
I just threw mine away. I just found that out.
Okay.
And I just bought a bag and I just threw it away before I came here.
Wow. Really? Okay, oh, good. Man, well, this month marks my 6th month in office, and I want to thank our council and the department heads and everyone in Hollywood Park for helping it be so successful. I know we started out week 1 with a threat of a lawsuit from a company wanting to challenge the constitutionality of our solicitation ban. And we've managed to work within that and appease that without dramatically impacting residents negatively. And that took a lot of work from council and from our committees. And I want to thank HPCA. I guess in the last month they had a Halloween event that was rained out and rescheduled. They had their annual meeting, and then they had a successful chili cook-off. And November being the month in which Arbor Day falls, we had an event on the 3rd down at the Voight Center where we planted a Mexican plum, and Mark Duff and the Tree Advisory Committee was there. And we've got an exciting program to offer details of tonight regarding that, and looking forward to getting a lot more things done and staying on a progressive track. Thanks again to the council members for working with me, and much appreciated. Thank you. So now we have to go to the consent agenda to approve the minutes of the October meeting. Would anyone like to move to do that?
I move that we accept the consent agenda in its entirety.
Do we have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Motion carries. And to accept the financial statements as of 10/31/2018.
I kind of did the whole thing.
Okay.
I did in its entirety.
All right. We have a second on that as well.
I second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Very good. Now, we have no business, no old business to discuss. So what I would like to do is change the order of the items. Oh, I'm sorry. We have an opportunity for citizen participation. If anyone would like to come up and speak, I didn't have any names on the sign-up sheet, but if you would like to, please do. And if not, what I would like to do is move to item 4 on the agenda, because we have some folks here from CPS Energy that would like to speak about the Green Shade rebate program and share some of the details of it. Thank you. Everybody sign.
CPS Energy. I'm the Senior Director of Environmental Sustainability, and I also am a resident of Hollywood Park. I'm on the Tree Advisory Board. And I have some of my colleagues here tonight, Linda Rodriguez and Beth Letman. So I'm here to just let everybody know we have a tree rebate called Green Shade. We've included this in our Sparks newsletter many, many times. It starts in October, and it's up to 5 trees per household, $50 per tree. And we have a list of approved trees, or native trees. We recommend for Hollywood Park and areas that have oak wilt, not for residents not to choose those trees that are susceptible to oak wilt, but there's lots of other trees on here like maple trees, sycamore, cedar elm, and some people don't realize that now is the best time to plant trees. And our rebate only runs from October through the end of April for that reason, because we don't want residents planting trees in the heat of the summer, because the trees will, the success rate is not very good. So we have, this is online. You can go online. That's where the rebate form is. We actually brought some, so we'll be glad to leave some with y'all to promote the program. And I'm going to see if I'm forgetting anything. Beth, am I forgetting anything? No? Yeah, April 30th.
All right.
Rest of April.
Are we right in understanding that the trees are to be planted on the southwest and east
side
sides of the home between 10 and 30 feet from the home?
That is correct. And there's the rebate form, kind of has a little diagram and some information. And the tree has to be 5 gallons or greater for the rebate, which $50 goes, pretty good ways toward a tree. So but it does have to be 5 gallons or greater.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
As an element of this, and to when looking at the oak wilt coverage map that Mark Duff was presenting at the November 3rd meeting of the HPCA, if you look at the original area where the oak wilt was concentrated, those homes are still basically barren around them. And I thought if we want to reforest our shade canopy and also save energy and capitalize on this program, I wanted to propose to the council that we use the tree committee funds and match the CPS program for up to 5 $50 trees, up to $250 per resident to get out and plant this winter. Especially if you're in the zone that's the red to blue area where the oak wilt is most likely to affect you, or if you've been affected, or even if you just want to plan ahead and offset the likelihood, we can capitalize this and offer residents between CPS and us up to $500 to help the planting cost and to have bigger trees go in the ground. And we have over $40,000 in the fund, so we could easily accommodate over 100 residents with this program. And it seems like it would be a smart, timely thing to protect the values of our homes and get some trees planted. And there are several common plants. If you look in the new Sparks that just came out, Mark Duff mentioned several of the same type of trees that they recommend planting: the Mexican sycamore, the cedar elm, the big tooth maple, and Texas ebony and walnut. There's several varieties of trees that grow straight and tall and provide lots of shade. And wanted to see if the council agreed that would be a good program. If the residents meet the criteria for qualification of CPS and it's an approved type of tree, then it would be a simple matter for us to approve it as well.
So matching what they do with CPS, is that what you're saying?
Mm-hmm. Yes. And up to $250 per resident. It's a one-time.
Have you talked to the tree committee about it?
No, I haven't.
You're on the tree committee, right?
I am now. Yes. It just seemed like this is the time of year to do it, and being Tree Month, and we're a Tree City USA, and having just celebrated Arbor Day, I thought it seemed like an appropriate time to bring something like this to the table.
What do y'all think?
I like the idea. I think we should talk to the tree committee.
Can we?
I can't think of a reason they would have an objection to it. A portion of the funds established are to help those who have red oaks that need to have them cut and removed from their properties. Historically, we've never needed to utilize more than 1,000 or 1,500 in a single year, and we have the opportunity to help over 100 residents plant trees between now and April, and either offset or improve their shade canopy and help reforest their yards.
Excuse me, Chris, would this be for all residents or mostly in the affected area?
It's really the way the way Mark was explaining it. If you're not yet in the zone, it's inevitable that it will come. So start now. It won't be as easy for you to find areas but some of these trees are more susceptible or that can grow easily in limited shade, while the other trees are still thriving. And so that you can plant them in between. But I think the ones that are most likely to want to respond are the ones who've been affected or are in that zone between the red and blue. I would rather not discourage anyone.
Yeah, I was just thinking more we're going to help the ones in the affected areas, because those trees are just barren. Like the ones on, I think, Ruta Mata. There's a couple in that area over there by States Crest. They're just... Yeah,
there's one on Danella now. It's I think Mark explained that there were 170 trees currently, or 170 homes that are either in the zone or have been affected by it so far to date, out of about 1,300. Does that sound right?
We are promoting, the Tree Advisory Board, we want all residents to plant diversity, other kinds of trees, because like you said, eventually it keeps getting bigger and bigger. So you do want to start planting, different kinds of trees now. Hopefully they will not just skip your yard. It won't grow, but so that is the goal, is to get different kinds of trees planted, because we have so many oak varieties.
Yeah, this provides $250 off utility bills and $250 directly back to the residents to offset the cost of up to 5 trees. I think it's
I think it's a good idea, but I feel like it should be limited to the people who have had oak wilt and are having to go to the expense of taking down those trees and planting more, because I think that's what the purpose of setting aside that tree money was, having the tree committee, tend to that money. I think that it wasn't the purpose to help those people in the red zone who have lost trees.
My understanding is the purpose of the fund was, there's a city ordinance that red oaks, once a red oak is diagnosed with oak wilt, you have 10 days to have it removed and remove it from the city limits. And this fund was set up to help offset the cost of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But we haven't had a whole lot of red oaks in the area yet. We're getting to them. If you talk to Mark, I believe he was saying there's 14, I think. Does that sound right?
I think so.
Anyway, there's some red oaks that are in the fixing to be hit zone. When those get hit, that money is set aside to help people pay to have them removed from their property.
And so far, there's like $40,000.
Was it just red oaks?
Correct.
Just for red oaks, because a red oak
Yeah.
is the typhoid Mary of oak wilt. Oak wilt will kill all the other oak varieties, but red oak is where the fungal mat, after the tree dies, the fungal mat is developed under the bark, and then when the insects get into that, then they can spread it through that.
Is that why we're not? That's why we're not to buy firewood that includes that as well, right?
Well, you don't
'Cause
want
it
to store
stays.
firewood that has that.
Yeah.
I mean, you can burn it as soon as it hits the fire, the oak wilt's destroyed, but
It's when you store it.
red oak on your property because it can get oak wilt in it.
Just to clarify, because I was on the tree advisory board when it first started, so I think the purpose of the fund, it is partly that, but it was also to promote, planting trees, managing trees, so it was more, it was multi-use, to improve tree canopy, manage trees, plant new trees, take care of oak wilt, so it was for a variety of reasons that the mitigation fund, for
I know that
contractors.
they just, the tree advisory board just released some money for me to purchase some more tanks and hoses and chemicals to help fight the oak wilt. So,
If we allowed initially for the boundary to include, the zone isn't specific to home lots. It crosses boundaries. But if any home that's affected or touched by that outer zone in that red to blue area, if all of those, as well as those that have been affected or initially covered in this, then we're not going to exhaust the fund, and we're going to be able to reforest and help those who've been affected at the very least. I would say to do that for now, but I would prefer it to be for everyone. I think the others won't be as likely to participate because they already have trees in full bloom in their yards. But what do you guys think?
I'd like to make a motion
Okay.
that we accept the matching tree fund that CPS is offering, as Chris Murphy described.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Motion carries. Thank you all. Thank you guys for coming out and helping present the topic. It's a good month for trees. All right. If we skip back to new business item 1, the Deer Manager will present the Deer Committee's annual report, and the City Council will discuss take appropriate action regarding the Deer Management Program.
Hi, Luann Montgomery, 304 El Patel. I apologize. I'm not going to try to pass myself off as the Deer Manager tonight. Because he's having his Thanksgiving dinner with his family this evening. But also to the annual report, we normally do not prepare that until sometime in April, towards the end of the deer season. But what I'm come here to inform you that the Deer Committee has voted 5-4 in favor of removing deer again this year. We would like to remove 10 does and 2 bucks, and as long as the paperwork and everything is completed because it hasn't been done yet, but there doesn't appear to be any snags in this. We'll be going to our friends up at Camp Bolus, and we think that this is most definitely a benefit in at least continuing to keep our herd down. Unfortunately, some of the people on the feeder street also are, I think, helping us a little bit in keeping the buck population down. Unfortunately, because we've already lost 11 really beautiful bucks in our community, and a lot of those were hit by vehicles, and many of those were happened up on or near the feeder street. Am I correct? Do you guys? Okay, but that's from what I understand from Randy and Kelly. I thought. Oh, okay. Well, I thought it was 12 until you gave me the recent information just a little bit ago. And okay, so 11 or 12.
When you say feeder street, are you referring to 281? And,
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, but the 281 and I don't know if you've all noticed, but in the past, say, year and a half or 2 years, I know I've noticed a much larger population of deer by the up on Donella. That really, really makes me very nervous every time I come through there and see a large deer herd right there so close to the feeder. And I believe that there might be some folks up there that may be feeding, but nonetheless, we do have a situation up there that we really have to be cautious with. At any rate, I wanted to come up and ask y'all for consideration for removing the 10 does and the 2 bucks to go to Camp Bolus this season. And right now, that's all that we have to report until that's been done. So, if you will.
Thank you. Any citizen comments? Those were being tested. Those, we have a comment from a resident. Yes, yes, they were having their lymph nodes tested, so they were sending off because those were hit by cars last night. Thank you. Yeah, next time you need to sign up on this list, ma'am. Sure, please do.
On the count, did y'all vote on taking 12 out and then 12 were killed? Or?
Yes, that's correct.
Did that just kind of take care of your problem, though?
Well, yes and no, because for us to be able to transport any out, we would have to submit a minimum of 15 CWD samples for lab analysis to ensure that we do not have CWD in the herd. So consequently, and unfortunately, the bucks did take care of that. But in so doing, as it was explained to us, when a buck is gone, just that buck is gone forever.
Oh, I got you.
When the does are gone, I mean, that's a lot of reproduction. And so it's unfortunate that we've lost a lot of our bucks. But if we also can maintain and balance it out a little bit more so with the removal of just the 10 does, and then we always will usually negotiate 1 or 2 bucks just with, good faith that, the ranches and those sites working with us. But that's how that occurs. So the bucks, one good thing, we don't have to process any for those CWD and samples, and with the 15 16, I think 16 now that we've lost. 12 bucks and 12 bucks and 4 does. Those that makes up for the CWD samples that need to be submitted to the state.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other questions?
Those bucks, that's a lot of bucks.
Yes, it
Are they
is.
nighttime, daytime, all times?
The way Randy explained it was a lot of them, the younger bucks, the older bucks are pushing them around, so they're running, and they're not paying attention where they're running.
And they're chasing the does.
And they're chasing
I
the
was
does.
I was coming across Danella from the other side of 281, and I was following a buck and a doe across Danella on the road.
There was,
On the overpass?
I had a call today on Manila. 2 bucks were fighting, and when I got down there, there was at least 40 deer standing around watching them. I'm not joking, that's the truth.
Were they going, fight, fight, fight?
No, they were. I mean, there were deer everywhere. And, people are coming down to Nella. They're moving a good clip. And
Is that primarily where most of them come on Danella?
They're
the
trying
ones
to
I
get
picked up have been Danella, Meadowbrook, 281, Access Road. A couple of them further back, but most of them have been up this direction.
Somehow they found out that if they cross the freeway, they won't be trapped.
Is that what it is?
I'm guessing. I don't.
There's a lot more does to choose from.
There you go. Okay, that's one.
And with, of course, this being mating season, and
Yeah,
it's
those bucks are like, they don't even,
no,
They don't care.
you bump into
like
your-
most species.
Hey.
I know.
Where'd that come from?
No, what? Any other questions? Okay.
Well, I know the decision of council is subject to the authority of the mayor and the committee, and I would want to recommend that we would move to act as recommended by our committee, but it is subject to council approval, and so if someone would like to move in such a manner, we
I
can.
move that we approve the removal of said number of bucks and does.
Okay.
Well, I guess I don't need to amend it because the committee actually decided to do that contingent upon them being released at Camp Bullis. And then if that doesn't go through, then we don't move anything.
Correct. That was
Oh, good. With that stipulation.
So-
based on the recommendations of the deer manager.
So can we just make that stipulation in your motion?
Say that again?
Never mind, you're fine, because that's what they decided anyway. Yeah. But if you'll just make it that they were going to Camp Bullis.
Can we move that it be as stated, contingent upon them going to Camp Bullis?
Mayor, if that's the recommendation of the Deer Project Manager and the committee, then frankly, y'all don't really need to approve it. When I talked to you today, I was looking at an older version of the code, out of the code book I had, and I realized I had a more current version from April of this year, and it says the Deer Project Manager shall be supervised by the Deer, let's see.
I thought it did have to come up here.
Hmm?
I thought it did have to come up here.
It says the Deer Project Manager, upon advice and consent of the Deer Committee, shall determine the number of deer to be trapped, transported, and all of that. And he's made that decision, made that recommendation. It's not subject to y'all's approval.
Okay.
Never mind.
All right. With those terms, all right. So moved. Anyone have a second on that?
Actually, y'all don't need to take any action.
We don't have to.
It's
Okay.
already taken.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Is there something we could do? I don't know, send a note or something for the first block of Darnella, asking them not to feed the deer to kind of keep them from going that way? I mean, is that something the deer committee wanted you to take on or something?
Sure, please. If you can address her request, I appreciate that.
Actually, I was going to, this was something that kind of was brought to light later today to me, and I definitely have plans to look at the ordinance a little closer to see if maybe there isn't something that we can work with those residents, or because there is some specifics in the deer feeding ordinance, and I plan to visit that and see if there's something maybe that we can do.
All right, thank you. All right, let's go on to item number 2 is to discuss and take possible action on utility easement access rights. Any citizen comments on this topic? All right. Mr. Brennan, do you have information to share with us?
Mayor, I was double checking.
Can we find a working microphone for Mr. Brennan? Thank you.
Oh, man. Sorry.
Thank you.
I was double checking this when I saw this question come up. And I don't know if y'all care about the history, but back in prior years, cities negotiated their own franchises with telecommunications companies, and it got to be so burdensome for telecommunications companies like AT&T and Time Warner and all that to negotiate with 40 cities in each county and all that stuff. So they finally got legislation passed a few years ago that centralized all of the telecommunications rules in one chapter of the local government code. And they did some good things and bad things in that codification. But one of the good things was that they said that a municipality may require the issuance of a construction permit without cost of the certificated telecommunications provider locating facilities in or on public rights-of-way within the municipality. The terms of the permit shall be consistent with the construction permits issued to other persons excavating in the public right-of-way. And it has to be based on police power, management of right-of-way, and the only caveat in there is the regulations must be competitively neutral and may not be unreasonable or discriminatory. So cities clearly have authority now to regulate telecommunications companies who want to do excavations in your right-of-way. So that's the authority that cities have to deal with these telecommunications companies that come in and dig up the streets and dig up the rights-of-way and so forth. I then checked y'all's code, and y'all have a good code. As far as I can tell, it's about 12 pages of code that says construction in the public rights-of-way. And it tracks the state law. It says you have to have a permit to do it. And it's got all kinds of details and powers for the city to regulate telecommunications companies that are out digging in your rights-of-way. So as long as y'all are following the permit process, and as long as the permits are properly done, that give y'all authority to approve what they're doing and the timing and the repairs and all that stuff, y'all have all the authority that anybody could have in the rights of way. Now, there may have been some problems with one or more companies that came to town and was working in the right of way, and there have been problems in some of the other cities that I'm connected with, like they hit a water main and you have a flood, and hit a gas line or something, have an explosion, and they do make mistakes, but they're permitted, they should be bonded, and I don't think y'all have any lack of authority to keep a hammer on these companies that come out here and dig in your streets and rights of way. And I assume everybody knows that rights of way is not just the paved part of a street. Usually rights of ways are 50 feet wide or some figure like that, and may have like 20 or 30 feet of pavement, so that there's 10 feet on either side of it that's part of the public right of way. So these companies can work in those unpaved portions of the right of way if they want to, because the state law says they can. But unless there's some specific question, the laws that you all have on the books are good.
I know some issues have arisen from the excessive rainfall that we've had that's given the utility companies, if I'm not mistaken, an excuse from their typical protocol of sending out notices to the residents that they're not having to keep the same kind of schedule. And if they don't have equipment with them when they're doing the installation or the excavation part to remove big rocks, then they'll say they'll come back at a later time to clean up and remedy a whole block at a time. And we don't seem to have as much control over how prompt they are in doing that, because we have some large rocks in people's yards and things. And so we're being asked to enforce rules that are somewhat vague as far as how prompt they have to be in remediation.
Well, y'all may want to be more specific in the building permits that are issued. The only restriction is that whatever you say in there for AT&T, or for example, you have to apply the same rule to all the others. It can't be discriminatory or not competitively neutral. But other than that, y'all, you have a lot of power and control in your building permits, down to details like that, if you want.
Good to know. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Brennan?
Yeah, I've got a concern, and I voiced that to you and to Kelly as well, is, letting people know ahead of time that, I've had several residents come to me saying, what's going on? I went to work this morning, came home, and there's a bunch of people in my yard digging holes with no, nobody letting them know ahead of time. And whether that we're required to or not, I think, at the very least, as a town, we should let our residents know what's going on. I saw an email come out yesterday about work being done on the street I live on. Well, the email that came out after the work had already been done, so it's a little late.
I'm working with Utilicom, the company doing that.
Or all of them. I mean, they should. Residents. We owe it to our residents to let them know, hey, you're going to have somebody in your yard for the next 2 or 3 days.
What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get them to give me like a planned schedule. This is what our plans are.
And it sounds like from our attorney that we do have the power to regulate them and tell them when and where and how, and not just say and let them tell us. They're in our town, tearing up our streets and our yards. So I think we should have the power to tell them how it should be. Am I correct in saying that, Counselor?
I say you are, if that's the way you do treat everybody. In other
Right.
words, as long as that's part of the plan for everyone, that's fine.
Okay.
Just to let you know, and Miss Linda's here, so she knows we've got together. We've had issues in the past with CPS and SAWS on just this exact same thing, and we spoke to Linda, and we have an agreement with them. So the guiding force with people like AT&T, who we have not met formally with, would be to shut them down. So when they start working here, and they're not supposed to be, they haven't come and gotten a permit, they haven't done the preliminary work with us, we shut them down. And that works like a charm, because guess what? Next time they come and work in Hollywood Park, or if they want to continue to work in Hollywood Park, they come, they pull the permit, they let us know what streets they're going to be working on, when and where. So we have that plan scheduled, or else they can't work in Hollywood Park.
Right.
So, yeah. And Kelly and I have spoken about this already.
Is it true that they can skip the normal process of notification if they have a weather?
There should be no skipping of anything.
Yeah, that's what I'd heard, and I was surprised by that.
The only exception about things like that is for an emergency.
Okay.
But I don't think a weather issue is an emergency.
But it used to be utility emergencies, but utility companies have my cell phone number, so I tell them, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, call me at 3 o'clock in the morning, because guess what, when I get up here at 8 o'clock, somebody better be knocking on my door wanting a permit.
It's a Wi-Fi emergency. All right.
Do they have the right to dig in our yards? Because I know someone on Sequoia thought that they were out of the right of way and digging in his yard.
No.
They don't have
They don't have any permission to do anything on private property. It's only in city right of way.
They were in the utility right away.
They were. Okay.
Yeah, you went out. Yeah,
I went over and met with with him. And
How far is the utility right away on your property, like from, say, your curb or the edge of the street?
once again,
Can it vary?
it has to do with the width of the street.
Okay.
So you got the width of the street plus it's, I believe, 50 feet.
The only way to really know is to see a plat that describes that subdivision. Some right-of-ways are 40 feet, some right-of-ways are 50, some are 60, and the street doesn't necessarily have to be located in the center of the right-of-way. It can be in the center, and that's the normal place, but it can be to one side or the other.
Right.
So without looking specifically at a plat, you really don't know exactly where the location of the curb or the street is in comparison to the private property lines.
Right. Okay.
With AT&T, do we know, are they going to end up going down every street eventually?
My understanding.
Yes?
I mean, if they're putting in, what is it? Fiber optic. They're putting in fiber optic on every street. And they're making that available to all the residents, which is a good thing, but, and I think they're only digging on one side of the street, and then they're running it up the poles, and then they're going to the
So
other
they're
side
not
of the
doing
street.
curb cuts or to
No,
avoid-
they're going underneath driveways and whatever. But and I do see that they're going like around landscaping. They're not tearing up, and landscaping or mailboxes or whatever else is out there. But my biggest complaint, and the complaint, like I said, is just lack of letting people
Notice.
know.
Yeah.
My understanding of talking to the Utiliton guys is there's certain streets that they're going to be doing overhead, and certain streets they're going to be doing underground. Which ones they are, they haven't given me any kind of maps or anything like that. Y'all give me some direction on what y'all want me to do, I'll be glad to do it. I mean, I can bring them in, make them pull a new permit, and
Yeah, I think we should schedule a meeting with them and get some things clear. And appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Brennan.
Thank you.
I think going on to item number 3, we're going to discuss, take possible action to approve a SAWS bill collection agreement with Hollywood Park. And this is the scheduled renewal of the contract that provides for the collection of water bills and water care. Thank you guys, CPS. Thank you guys for coming out. And it's at the same rate, 85 cents per home, as it's been, I believe. Mr. Brennan, is that? It was more as an updated going forward.
The other
SAWS.
agreement expired, and they're
Yeah.
renewing it. And Janice, I'm not sure about the rates, changing rates or not. Do you know? I mean, so the new contract they're proposing they're not charging us more for the service than they used to.
No, I didn't see any changes in the terms, and it because it'll renew each year. As far as the water rates and other terms, we still will have the opportunity to include other things, like if we make a decision to implement a sewer program where we develop an escrow fund or what have you, we can do that on an annual basis and make amendments to this. It just expired, and it was scheduled to be renewed, and I think it's more cost efficient than it would be for us to do the billing and collecting of all the residents and be responsible for late payments than it would be to use this system at 85 cents a house.
Does the city pay the 85 cents for the resident?
It's built into the bill, so the resident pays it, and then there's an 8% collection fee that they earn if someone doesn't pay the water bill, and then they have to collect it, and that's spelled out in this agreement as well. We don't incur it.
So it's basically the same agreement that we have now, we're just renewing it.
That's correct.
Would anyone like to move to renew the SAWS arrangement?
I move that we approve the SAWS bill collection agreement with Hollywood Park.
All right, do we have a second?
I second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Thank you. We've got the last item on our agenda was to discuss the focus and direction of the EDC, our EDC going forward. I was hopeful to get a read from council and any citizens on how they felt the interaction has been between us and them, and what we might do to improve it or change it, and just what kind of interactions you've had with them.
I would just like, from my standpoint, I've had good interactions with them. I think they're moving in the right direction, and I think they get some great ideas. It's unfortunate that some of them we can't come to terms with, but I like the direction they're headed, and that's just my 2 cents.
I think the EDC has outlived its. I think the EDC has outlived its cause to build businesses here in Hollywood Park. We've ran out of land, and I think it's something we should think about not having the EDC any longer.
I'm concerned with some of the things that have been in the works. I don't know if y'all met with the president, but I met with him, and he was working on a grand plan for Voigt Park, which included sort of a re-envisioning it, I guess, and it involved, moving fences and using the Voigt Center as a pavilion and having it open all day long, and things that I'm not in favor of. We just spent millions of dollars on that park, and I don't want to have a revision of Voigt Park. I like it how it is, and I think it's beautiful how it is. So he was still working on the presentation, but he was going to present it as an all or nothing, and because he was talking about security cameras, and I said, yes, that's good. We need security cameras. And he said, well, it will all be in this package. And I said, well, put it separately too, because your package may not pass. And he said, no, it's all or nothing. It's, you can't, we're not going to break it out. And so I think that is counterproductive. And I'm not going to vote to go and reimagine Voigt Park. I have been thinking long before, for years, do we still need the EDC? But I didn't want to lose that 1/4% if we could not add it somewhere else. And I was getting conflicting reports on, yes, you can collect more than 1%. No, you can't. And so I reached out to Lyle Larson, and he said that, yes, you can increase, if we terminated the EDC, that we could increase the general sales tax from 1% to 1.25%. And then we could use it for anything that we want. It's not so limited in purpose. And I'm also concerned that some of the things that the EDC is proposing, like the landscaping projects and stuff, and for it to take over the landscaping and get rid of public works, I don't think that those are permissible things that the EDC can use that money on. The money's supposed to be used to promote business. And we have, we're built out. We have no more commercial property around. So what Law said, I'll just read this if y'all are okay with that. It says, according to the Comptroller's Office, yes, it is possible to terminate an EDC and increase the general sales and use tax rate from 1% to 1.25%. Local Government Code Chapter 501, Subchapter 1, allows the corporation's authorizing unit to terminate the existence of the corporation by written resolution of that governing body. This type of termination authorized by the governing body of the tax unit that created the EDC does not appear to require an election to process the termination. However, information must be submitted to the Secretary of State. If there's any outstanding debt or contracts, this may impede the governing body's ability to terminate the EDC immediately. Hollywood Park would then need to hold an election to increase the general sales and use tax from 1% to 1.25%, which Tax Code Chapter 321 governs this particular process. The Comptroller's Office recommends that if you're considering this option to terminate the EDC and increase the general sales and use tax, to reach out to this certain guy. So it is possibly doable, if we want to do that, where that way we would still be collecting the money, but it would be going to the general fund where we could use it for whatever we want instead of such restricted uses as it is now. Let's see. Let me make sure I don't have. I'm also concerned with the brush clearing that went on over on the other side on Sonterra property. Number one, it's not our property. I'm not in favor of using EDC funds. The EDC funds, that's Hollywood Park's money. I'm not in favor of using Hollywood Park's money to improve someone else's property. And I think it thwarts the statute, whatever our ordinance is, where we say you have discretion to use, up to 10,000 without coming to council when we say, okay, we're going to, it's under 10,000, 10,000, so we're going to go clear land. And then they do that, and they're like, okay, now we're going to do a phase 2, and it's another $10,000. So now it's a $20,000 project, but it's been chopped into, they paid it in 2 installments. So I think it thwarts the purpose of saying, that there's a $10,000 limit. Let's see. Hold on. Okay, I think that's. Oh, and then I also don't think that they flat out have the authority to, even if something is less than $10,000, I don't think that they have the authority to just go carry it out without coming to the city. So those are my thoughts. Thanks.
Any other comments?
I agree with everything she said.
As do I. I know I've been pleased with general cooperation, especially early on, with upgrades for police, fire, for court. We've been able to cut court time in half with the software and improvements we've made. But I think we need to be able to have more control. From what I'm understanding, in towns with populations under 20,000, if this is true, Jeff, we have a lot more leeway in how we can use EDC funds. I'm still scheduled to attend a day-long seminar in Austin, December 7th, with the president of our EDC, and it's supposed to be all about the EDC, how it works, how you can use it, what you can do with it, what you can't. If you guys are comfortable with me reporting at the next meeting the outcome of that, I would be a little concerned about the time and the effort needed to host a separate additional election, because it may be perceived as an additional tax when we realize it's not. It's a sales tax, and it could actually allow us to reduce ad valorem taxes to the same amount. Bless you, if we were able to do that. But I'll know a lot more in 3 weeks from now, and if you'd like me to share that with you guys, and we could see what, if anything, needs to be modified or fine-tuned.
Well, I too met with Mike, and he's got a lot of great ideas. My question to him 3 or 4 times was, is this within the limits of what EDC is allowed to do? And his response was, well, yes, we can do this if we buy this for the city and that for the city. Well, now you start trading off things, and that's totally illegal. I mean, EDC can't pay for something the city. Is it?
I don't
Can
know.
EDC
I
pay
guess
for
we're going to
something?
find out in the next meeting.
Yeah, I mean.
Well, another one. My point was that if the city does something for EDC and the EDC does something for the city, is that allowed? Because it's a different way of getting around something.
Well, EDC money can just be spent on EDC authorized projects. I mean, you can't swap this or tit for tat or whatever.
Right.
It's got to be a straight up expenditure of money by the EDC.
Well, so far we haven't had a definition of what the EDC is allowed to do specifically, and not allowed or not allowed to do.
Well, that would be a good subject to bring back to the next meeting if the mayor's going off, because there's probably going to be some good handwritten or good written material authorizing or stating what the authority of EDC expenditures is. There are several statutes that describe what EDC money can be spent on, but they're tough. They're a tough read. They're not easy to understand.
Well, I'm too with what Debbie said. You spend $10,000 on one project, and let's do another project and another project. Next
That's
thing
not
you know,
good. That's not good. I mean, if that's what's really happening, that's not good.
yeah, you can't break it down
See,
5 times to get one
yeah.
big project done.
I mean, if you just know the law that applies to you all, when you all do a project, you go out for bids, and the state law is a $50,000 cap on what y'all can do without public competitive bids of some sort, and you can't divide a project into 2 pieces of $49,000 each, and consider that a legal process. You just can't do that.
And I don't know if he's doing that, but that's what it
I don't know.
appears to be.
No, that's what he's doing.
I have the feeling that he and I will be asking a lot of questions in this meeting.
Chris,
on that day.
at the
in December.
EDC meeting, he was talking, he wants to, where now the way it is set up, if there, let's take the fans for example. When they say, okay, we'll buy fans for the Voight, as it's set up now, then that goes through Kelly. He wants to have that change where if EDC is doing a project that the city's asked them to do, they take care of it. They hire the contractors, they do everything. They're wanting to control the show.
You know, is that a Ryan Henry question as far as that's their responsibility or ours to oversee?
Well, you know, the mayor is the executive director of the EDC, and you're the one that's supposed to implement the projects. They don't implement their own projects.
Okay.
And as a practical matter, I mean, if it involves, if it's a purchase or a project that involves the PD, of course the PD should have some sort of operational control over it. Or if it involves the fire department, of course they should. If it involves infrastructure,
permits are required.
I mean, the city's got to be involved, whatever department, and
I think we'd have to clarify that.
Kelly, did I explain it correctly? You were there.
That was my understanding, yes, ma'am.
Yes. He was wanting to get the bids, oversee the job, and
Without any oversight.
Well, it's important that we have this opportunity
That's kind of why our ceiling fan project was stalled down there.
I was also at the Economic Development Corporation meeting, and what they actually said was they were going to make the resolutions now so that the chairman of the Economic Development Corporation was the administrator. All the new resolutions, and what Mr. Brennan said is true, that like most cities, the EDC is a component unit of the city, and if it says that the mayor is the administrator, they probably can't do that with resolutions.
Okay. So what happened with the fans? I mean, are you involved in that, or what's going on?
The product hit the fans, I think.
The mayor turned it over to me, asked me to get bids. I started getting bids, and the next thing I know, Mr. Drury has already hired a contractor, and they bought fans, and then he found out that they had to pull permits, and it stopped. I actually pulled the old ceiling fans down yesterday because they were damaged in the last windstorm we had. So we have no fans on the back porch. This was 2 months ago. This project was approved, and it's taken. We've got absolutely nothing done.
That should be a function of
Kelly.
Public Works.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to clarify that, and I'm glad we had a chance to share this, and appreciate that. Any other comments from anyone?
Look forward to having your report at the next
Thank
meeting.
you. Same here. I'll have a good report to share, and I appreciate that.
Is our next meeting during Christmas week?
I believe it's on Christmas Eve.
17th, 18th.
So it's not Christmas.
No, but I'm going to be out of town.
18th. The 18th is our next meeting, and with this, I will adjourn our council meeting tonight at 8:09. Thank you all for being here and present and participating. Have a safe and happy Thanksgiving, and plant trees. Yeah. And,
Chris, when is that meeting? You said you're going to December 7th?
December 7th.
Okay.
Yes, D-Day, isn't that?